connecting our lives to help us survive. So we live our time to the fullest we can.
Hello, and welcome to Professional Insights, created by Dementia Action Alliance. I'm proud to be your host, Laurie Scherrer. During our Professional Insights podcast, we have educational conversations with professionals in the dementia community to provide answers and support to people living with dementia and care partners. My guest today is Dr. Glenna Brewster, here to talk to us about sleep challenges with dementia. Dr. Brewster is an assistant professor on the tenure track in the School of Nursing. She graduated with a bachelor's and master's of science in nursing, a master's of arts in gerontology, and a PhD in nursing science from the University of South Florida. She completed a postdoctoral fellowship with the Center for Sleep and Circadian Neurobiology at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. Her program of research focuses on understanding sleep disturbances experienced by persons living with cognitive impairment and their care partners, developing behavioral interventions to address their sleep disturbance, and examining the impact of these sleep interventions psychologically, cognitive, and physiological outcomes. Dr. Brewster serves on the board of directors for the National Hartford Center of Gerontological Nursing Excellence. Dr. Brewster, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Laurie, for inviting me. And I am on faculty at the Emory University School of Nursing.
Oh, I missed that. Thank you so much for catching that. And welcome. You know, it just amazes me how many people are willing to take time out of their very busy schedule to be with us. I know you have a busy schedule because it took us months to come up with a date. So again, I just want to thank you for coming. I have some questions for you, and I want to start off with, what is the function of sleep?
Well, thank you so much, Laurie, for having me. And I'm so happy to be here so that we could talk about sleep and kind of talk about what it is that I do for my research. So I think sleep is one of the first things that back in the day we would usually be willing to give up, but we are now understanding that sleep is such an important function in just our daily lives and our ability to function. So sleep is necessary to maintain brain health. It's needed for rest and rejuvenation of our brains and also of our bodies, and it functions to help with learning and memory. So when we sleep, actually what happens is that there is a system within our brains that is called the glymphatic system, and it helps to remove metabolic waste and all the products that we would have built up during the day that isn't good for our bodies. And it shows that when we sleep, one of the things that happen is that this glymphatic system actually works much better and more efficiently and is able to remove these soluble proteins and metabolites from the system. So what I'm talking about, beta amyloid and tau, which we talk about a lot with Alzheimer's disease, our brains are actually able to remove most of that and a lot of that at night while we're asleep. And sleep also plays a function in hormone production. So growth hormones is secreted when we're asleep, antidiuretic hormones, which functions to keep our kidneys working and help with efficiency there, that's secreted, as thyroid stimulating hormones, and even ghrelin and leptin, which are two hormones that works with regulating when we're hungry and when we're full, and that plays a role in whether we sometimes develop diabetes or prediabetes. So a lot of things happen in our bodies when we are asleep, and one of the things that we should make sure that we prioritize.
Wow, I didn't realize all that happens while you're sleeping. That's amazing. Why does sleep change in dementia, and how does it impact the sleep pattern of the person living with dementia and their care partners? I mean, everybody I talk to with dementia goes through some kind of sleep changes. Why does that happen?
So one of the things we know is that dementia, regardless of the type, or neurons are affected. So the neurons are really the main cells within the brain that allows for the transport of information. So when the neurons are damaged, based on where they're damaged, then it could affect what we call the circadian pacemaker of the body. And the circadian pacemaker is located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus of the brain. So if the neurons within that region is damaged, then it's going to change whether we know, it's morning or it's evening. So our body functions on a 24-hour cycle that we call the circadian rhythm, and that determines morning morning and evening, when we are asleep and when we're awake. So whenever that's damaged, then that removes that ability for the body to identify, okay, we should be awake now when we should be asleep. So that's damaged. Some of the pathways that start and maintain sleep are also damaged. And also within the brainstem regions, where we also have pathways that regulate sleep-wake cycles, those can also be damaged with dementia. And what do we see with that? Sometimes we see day-night sleep pattern reversal. So that means that the person might want to be awake during the day, they might want to be asleep during the day and awake at night, or they might wake up quite frequently during the night, or they might have increased in daytime sleepiness and taking more naps. And what does that mean for caregivers? It means that, for one, they are usually aware of the sleep pattern for the person living with dementia. And a group of researchers that I was a part of, we did this review of, we did an analysis, and what we found was that about 61% of caregivers actually reported that they knew about the sleep pattern of the person living with dementia. And that means sometimes it took more than 30 minutes to fall asleep, or they woke up multiple times during the night. And when this happens, then this also wakes up the caregiver. So it might end up being that the caregiver might have shorter sleep duration. On average, it shows that caregivers actually have shorter sleep duration than the recommended of 7 hours of sleep nightly, which is, normal. 7 to 9 is what we recommend. They also say that they have poor subjective sleep quality compared to non-caregivers. They might take a longer time to fall asleep. They spend less time in restorative stages of sleep, and they spend a lot more time at night being awake after they've initially fallen asleep. And they also have inconsistent sleep and wake times.
I know a lot of us with dementia go through sleep challenges and sleep changes. So I'm real excited that you're going to be talking to the whole group of us about that. It's going to be really exciting. But for those people that aren't going to be on the discussion but are watching this podcast, what are some of the things that people living with dementia and or their care partners can do to help with the sleep, to help get a more regular sleep and a better sleep pattern?
So, luckily there are many things behaviorally that we can do. So many people might be taking medications, but in addition to medications, there are many things behaviorally that we can do. So the first thing we often talk about is sleep hygiene. And those are personal and environmental activities that can influence sleep. So we can examine what we're doing personally, or what's in our environment that we can look at that we can change. So one of the first things that we do have control over is maintaining a sleep schedule, including on weekends. So, having a consistent wake up time. We might go to bed at a different time based on if we're sleepy or if we're not sleepy, but to the extent that it's possible, maintaining a regular wake time. Then having a bedtime ritual, and what does that look like for you? So, you're ready to go to sleep. Are you going to, go into your room and ensuring that it is dark and it is cool, and you are just going to go to bed when you're feeling sleepy and not doing additional things in the bed? So practicing a relaxing bedtime ritual, or maybe listening to something relaxing before bed. Turning off electronics with bright lights before going to bed. Exercising is great, and I'm going to talk about that, later, but exercising regularly, but try to not exercise within 2 hours of going to bed. Limiting caffeine intake. How much caffeine do you drink? Do you drink anything after lunchtime? Maybe you should reduce that if you're doing that. Limiting alcohol intake, maybe 2 hours before bed. If you smoke, also limiting nicotine intake. And if you wake up at night, not smoking when you wake up. And also ensuring that your bedroom is quiet, dark, and a cool, comfortable temperature. Not having the television in your room. A lot of people tend to sleep with their television on, but because of the difference in the frequency of the sound when you do that, we strongly discourage having a television in the bedroom. Exercising is another intervention. So doing your best to get, the 150 minutes minimum of moderate to intense activity per week. And if you're going to start a new routine, to make sure that you speak to your healthcare provider about it so that they can evaluate you before you do start on a routine, if that's what you're going to do. Doing mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques so that you're really aware, purposefully, and accepting of the state that you're in, to be able to, then calm down and be able to facilitate and get better sleep. So you can do deep breathing, body scanning, walking meditations, or yoga. And then light. When you wake up in the morning, opening your windows to make sure that your body know that, the light is going through your eyes and your body know that it is morning. And then on evening, starting to ensure that you're inside and not exposing your eyes to bright light or the blue light that says it's time to be awake, but minimizing your exposure to that. And then finally, we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So that is a multi-component intervention, and that includes stimulus control, sleep consolidation, relaxation, cognitive restructuring, and then sleep hygiene that I just talked about. With the stimulus control, what we do is we strengthen the association between the bed and the bedroom and sleep. So we say, maintaining a consistent sleep-wake schedule, only go to bed when you're feeling sleepy, minimize napping. If you have to take a nap, do so before 3 p.m. Do not lay awake asleep in bed. So do not lay awake in bed. So if you're in bed and you're laying there and you feel like you're not going to fall back asleep, get out of bed, go into another room and do something else there, and do not go to bed until you're feeling sleepy, and wake up at the same time each day. Also, don't spend more time than you need to in bed. So if you are, sometimes some people spend 10 hours in bed, but they're actually only asleep for 8 hours. When we do sleep compression, what we do is we reduce the amount of time that they're spending in bed to the time that they actually need to be asleep. So they might need to be asleep for 8.5 hours and not 10 hours. So the goal is to spend only the amount of time that you're asleep in bed, sleeping, and not in bed awake and tossing and turning. So those are some of the things we say, and ensuring that the only activities you're doing in bed, we say the 3 S's, only sleep, sex, and sickness. Those are the only 3 things you should be doing in bed, nothing else. So no reading, no arguing, no watching TV, no other activities. Focus on those 3. Everything else should be done outside the bed and the bedroom.
I like those 3 S's. I'll have to keep that in mind. Well, any other tidbits or tips that we haven't talked about yet?
So I think those are the main things that you would focus on, but I really strongly encourage anyone to prioritize sleep, and if you have any challenges you feel with sleep, to definitely speak to your healthcare provider about it, because there are ways and interventions for it. And, behaviorally, that's the first thing that I would say that's oftentimes one of the main interventions to make behavioral changes. And sometimes, I always say if you need to take a medication, then you do that too, but you use both in tandem to help you get a better outcome.
Wow. Fantastic. Boy, thank you. Thank you for all this information. And Dr. Brewster, I just want to say thank you for joining us today to share information about sleep challenges. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for having me.
I'd also like to thank you, our viewers, for joining DAA for this Professional Insights podcast. Please visit our website, daanow.org, to view other podcasts, find valuable resources, and find ways to connect with other people living with dementia through our virtual discussion and engagement groups. Dementia Action Alliance is committed to enhancing lives, connecting people, and increasing understanding. Thank you and have a great day.